You're welcome back. This is still TV3 Newday. Time now for the big issues, and it's an all-women's affairs today. So we'll have only women on the show, and this is one that we all admire. She's here today. She is Joyce Ba Mukhtar. She's a lawyer and a special aide to former President John Dramani Mahama. We missed her last week. She wasn't here, but she's back. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to see your warm smile.
Oh, thank you. Same here. I mean, I always look forward to seeing you in the studio on Thursdays as well. We're expecting Nana Akosua-Frimpomaa. She is the chairperson for the CPP. I'm sure that she'll get in soon. But yesterday, there was another town hall meeting that was held by the NPP to further sensitize Ghanaians on the need for the E-levy to be approved and passed in Parliament. And the Finance Minister was there, as well as Honorable Ijapa Mesa. He's the MP for 2nd D, and also the Deputy Energy Minister. We had the Central Regional Minister, Honorable Marigold, there, and also the Western Regional Minister, Honorable Kwabena Otreda-Kumensa. And so they all took turns to speak on why it is important for the E-levy to be passed. But let's just take a look at some of the things that the Finance Minister said with regards to why we would have a moral right to now demand from government, what our monies are being used for, and a number of other things. Take a look.
The National Cathedral, is going to become a symbolic issue for Africa, our spirituality and the leadership of it. For me, maybe sitting at my desk, I would say, okay, that's a lot of money that people, not the government, but people are going to mobilize to do that. But what does it really mean? 600 million people in Africa? That's interesting. Most of them can't go to Israel. That's interesting. So if 10% of these people come through, because we now become the new Jerusalem, and each one, usually when you talk about tourism spend, each one spends about $2,000 to $3,000. I look at the numbers and I'm like, wow, spirituality is good. It has its own blessings, and we should praise God for that. Amen. In all areas that we are reminded, we will be reminded to ensure that we use this money well, and the issue of protecting the public purse becomes paramount to us. The other beauty of the E-levy tax is that it makes all of us responsible for protecting the public purse. And that is important. Because once you pay taxes, you have the moral authority to be able to require, certain performances from the political elite. And that is what we should be doing.
And that is the Finance Minister, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta. And he seems to have taking the same position in the other town hall meeting that also happened in Koforidua. And in fact, if you listen to him when he was reading the budget as well, it doesn't look like he's backing down on why we really need the E-levy. And in fact, he says that if you go ahead and now start paying the E-levy, then you have a moral right to demand from government, development and a few other things as well. Lawyer, what do you make of the Finance Minister's assertions?
Well, Bella, thank you very much, and a very good morning. I think that the look on my face actually says it all. Just to think that, for me, genuinely, is the impunity, it is the dishonesty, and it is just the fact that it shows a certain utter disrespect for the people who are listening to him, or watching him, or following him. Come to think of it, this is the same gentleman who just a few years ago was waxing very lyrical, totally disrespectful of his predecessor, Finance Minister, the Honorable Sektekwe, and all the efforts that he had made to bring us where we are today, at least from where they took off. If you look at Ghana's debt burden in 2017, if you look at the deficit in 2017, if you look at the amount that was borrowed in 2017 as against what we have today, it tells you that we are certainly going nowhere. I would even want to see a little bit of humility from government actors and communicators, admitting largely that they should at least have followed the blueprint that they inherited from the prior administration. Legally, government's responsibility is first and foremost to the people. They actually owe us a duty of care. They even have a certain fiduciary relationship with citizens. And certainly citizens have paid taxes and continue to pay taxes. Bella, in the last month, fuel prices have gone up 5 times. The special petroleum tax that was taken off has been reintroduced.
If you say the last month, or you mean December?
December.
Okay, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
We're in the second month.
In the second month,
okay.
yes. So we are totally inundated. I think that it is not the responsibility, really, of the finance minister to start to act almost as if he actually sounded very patronizing. And I shudder to think what those who were listening to him closely in that auditorium actually thought of what he was saying. Jerusalem wasn't built overnight. Jerusalem wasn't built on the back of a debt-ridden economy. Neither was Jerusalem built on the back of a government now totally at its wit's end and almost screaming itself hoarse, literally begging. And I recall when President Kufuor went to the Akosombo Dam with a group of pastors to pray and preach about the effects of climate change and hope that things would look better and that it would rain suddenly. In fact, when you look at that action now in comparison to what we see today, maybe in many terms that even pales in comparison to what they're doing now. I mean, I listened to the president telling us that we would have to now, pay for the E-levy, so it would actually reduce all of our infrastructural burdens and what have you. You ask yourself, when they signed up for government in 2017, on January the 7th, what exactly were they thinking? We remember all the slogans and sloganeering about from taxation to production and how taxing people was a very lazy way of approaching it. Look.
No, they said they cancelled the 13 nuisance taxes, so... And
introduced over 100. Look at the list lately of various items currently being taxed. The worst of all is what we are listening to today. How suddenly the E-levy is a sine qua non for all of our hitherto challenges that we used to have. To fix our roads, to fix electricity, to fix everything that was ever wrong. Even to think that a minister of state actually said to us that NAPCO had ended and they should go and sign up for E-levy so that hopefully we can improve upon unemployment. I think that we are not even challenging the status quo enough. We are not challenging the dishonesty enough. We are not even visiting the subject of this extreme rape of our public press. And I think it is very rich coming from the Minister of Finance, who denigrated just about everybody, bragged loudly about his knowledge of finance and how he intended to totally restructure the whole economy of Ghana, and how they spent hours of taxpayers' money telling us all of this utter rubbish, as we all know today.
They said COVID
they are even,
took us back.
Look at the list that we check for deficits of the countries closest to us. In Nigeria, for example, I found out this morning on my way here that they are looking at it at 5.8%. Burkina Faso, with all their challenges, even with the coup d'etat, is at 5.7% of its deficit. Ivory Coast is 5.6%. 1.7%. Remember that in the period of COVID, they received as much as $1 billion from the World Bank. How did they spend that money? Who even accounted for it? You recall the committee set up to probe the health minister's activities regarding procurement of the services of Frontiers at the Ghana Airport Company Limited. What has happened? What has come of that inquiry? All the errors he admitted to, the avenues for corruption that he publicly admitted to, who has investigated them? The Auditor General admits that at least 500 million is lost from government institutions. And who is investigating those ones? And I listened to President Akufo-Addo even tell us that people should stop reporting their losses. So how does he expect them to account for whatever they've taken, what they've been given? I think that to tell us that once we sign up for the E-levy, Ghana will start to be like Jerusalem. Go and look at the Ofori-Atta Mausoleum in Ivory Coast. See whether all the lofty ideas that accompanied its construction have panned out. Many of the churches across the world that people historically used to hold very dear are literally almost empty. And if Ghana even wants to build a cathedral, maybe nobody says that a cathedral is bad for us, but don't carry out this unnecessary, dishonest deception of telling us that you're looking at Ghana becoming like Israel or Jerusalem and how people shouldn't travel there. The sort of spirituality and faith that is attached to the persons who go on the pilgrimage to Jerusalem. I think that for the finance minister to belittle it even in comparison to the dishonest attempt to fleece Ghanaians for what is rightfully ours is most annoying and totally unnecessary. I looked at his face, and you know, sometimes when people say stuff, look at their expressions even. Even his face belied what he was saying.
Did it?
Absolutely. It was a poor example. It was an attempt at humor. It fell flat. It was a totally feckless attempt to convince people who know that this corrupt government has actually foisted on us the hardships that we are all currently experiencing. Look, you don't need to be an expert or an economist to understand just what is going on. As of yesterday, the dollar is now 6.9 cedis to a dollar. The pound actually has totally broken and overtaken the 8, and nobody knows where it's going to. Look at the rate of inflation. Look at the cost. Remember that each time fuel prices go up, it drives everything else.
Yeah.
And then now the little wallet that you have, that is your personal resources received after tax, is now going to be subjected to pillaring by the same government that told us that every Ghanaian in the next year will have a bank account. I think that the inconsistencies override every good intention that they pretend to have. Let's cut the dishonesty. Let's cut down on corruption. Let's cut down the stealing. Look, if we saw government introduce some level of austerity, some modicum of reasonableness, and watch their spending, just maybe people would probably have a little bit of sympathy
for them.
them.
Well, I mean, there's a position that he's taken, and it's quite a similar position that the president has taken as well regarding the NPP stance on the E-levy. Yesterday, the finance minister responded to that, and then we'll also play what the president said with regards to the kind of opposition that government has faced since they announced the E-levy. Let's take a look at that.
So I think the NDC stance about not having E-levy may be misplaced, but it's not because they are not patriotic. But when we do the numbers, you realize that really we are at a point in our nation's history where we need to do things differently to be able to cross the issues that are confronting us with regards to youth employment, which affects all of us and really goes to the dignity of our people who are home, the issue of our debt, so that we can start mobilizing our own resources. But to be able to do that is to ensure that all of us contribute. The realization that the economy is shifting. And if it is shifting, then when do we get a head start at it to begin to understand that business? And also, therefore, to be able to raise the revenue required, because you can see 78 billion move into 953 billion, and you can see the trillions coming. And the opportunity, therefore, with digitalization, to also then move to all of us being a part of it.
It's not going to be possible for us in Ghana to continue forever to be dependent on foreign grants and foreign loans to keep our economy going. We ourselves will have to find the money for our development. And that is the reason why it's become necessary for us to introduce these measures like this famous tax, which has caused so much unnecessary, in my view, disputation. But nevertheless, we will continue. I'm determined to persevere, to make sure that we find the means to address some of the issues that you have got. It cannot be done other than through government. Government doesn't have any money on its own. It has money from the taxes of the people. That is the only way in which it raises money to be able to carry out its work as a government. But we will continue to work.
So that is what President had to say about the need to have the E-levy passed in Parliament. We cannot go back to IMF, but he also describes the opposition as unnecessary, quite similar to what the Finance Minister said with regards to the NDC's opposition as well. Before I have Auntie Joyce respond to this, we've also been joined by Amma Beko. She's a member of the MPP Communications team. Good morning.
Amma Deko.
Amma Deko.
Ellen.
Okay,
Amma
okay.
Deko.
Helen Amma Deko.
Ellen E.
Okay, good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Good morning. Good morning to
morning.
your viewers. Good morning, Auntie Joyce.
Good morning, Annie.
Everything okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
I'll let you respond shortly. But Auntie Joyce, what do you say to the position by the Finance Minister on this particular issue as well? Says that, you know, the opposition from the NDC is really not needed. It doesn't mean that you're unpatriotic, but I mean...
When the Italian president visited here in 2016 to come and seal the arrangement on the ENI agreement, were they being unpatriotic? Were they being unnationalistic? I have no doubt that we all know what is beyond reasonable, and I think this is one of those situations. Look, Ghanaians are already sweltering on the whole raft of taxes, and I'm surprised to hear His Excellency the President indicate in that strange attempt at sounding humble that government doesn't have any money. I thought that we were really sitting on the money, literally and figuratively, and that we had worked at the Bank of Ghana, according to His Excellency the Vice President, Alhaji Baumia, and so the money was there in the vault, in the kitty. They have totally milked the cow dry, emptied everything, and now that they are totally bogged down by all the raft of unnecessary and needless promises that they made, I think that suddenly to start to beg Ghanaians in this manner makes a mockery.
Are they begging Ghanaians or they're sensitizing Ghanaians? I mean, you know, let me say something, and I'm giving this as free advice. Genuinely, it's not government's business to engage in public relations. They should come from Mr. Hughes or Cookie or you. I think they're doing a very poor job so far. It's almost like you're giving something in your left and trying very hard to take it back with your right. And then everybody is thinking from the same spreadsheet. That is even most unnecessary. And you see, that's what I'm saying. We're not blind. We're not deaf either. We listen and we can see what's going on. Look, the NDC is a very responsible government. We have had our fair share. And I'm sure you remember when the ESLA was introduced, the way it was attacked and bastardized. Today, that same tax has been increased and totally mortgaged in return for additional loans. Government currently has borrowed in the regions of 12 billion United States dollars with absolutely nothing to show for it. Even under COVID, for the 111 hospitals they promised to construct, not even one has come up. I think that at least, let me give them a little bit of credit, that the president actually looks a lot more humble than I've ever seen him sound, at least since the last few years. So he knows now how tough it is to keep up this balancing act. But I think he can go further. okay.
I think he can show even more remorse by admitting that whatever prudent management things or policies that the NDC introduced under Mills, under Mahama, were actually one of the best that they could have done for this country.
You want the president to admit that?
I think it helps. You know, look, a colleague said something to me. There's something about African leadership. I think we totally destroy one another way too much. There's nothing even like a political elite. I think that's the wrong terminology that I've heard and listened to MPP people repeating all over the place, or a ruling class. Since when has Ghana had a ruling class? I doubt that we have anything that looks like a ruling class. I also doubt that there's anything like a political elite, because then it creates a certain club of people who should be up there and then lord it over everybody else. That is a notion I don't even want to creep into our lingua franca. And the earlier they put a stop to it, the better.
Okay.
The E-levy that they're going to tax, in his own vice president's voice, was money belonging to what? The very, very poor, and therefore should not be exigible to taxation. What has changed?
We haven't heard from the vice president on his position on this matter.
I think his silence is so loud, it's no longer funny. And all the attempts to rebrand him, to reposition him for whatever reason, and to come now and tax the E-levy totally defeats whatever we call digitalization.
Okay.
Because it actually undermines the effort to stop cash transactions to the point of using electronic transactions.
Okay.
And I have no doubt in my mind that all the propaganda and public relations will fall flat.
All right.
They should go back and revisit the taxes, see which ones they can still take out, and please stop acting as if we don't know our left from our right. I think that is totally unacceptable.
Amma, don't you think we should go back to the IMF like the former chairperson of the Finance Committee, Dr. Marcus Ibeyewa said? Because he says that, I mean, really, if you look at it, E-levy is not even going to generate that 6.9 million Ghana cedis that we're expecting, billion Ghana cedis. In fact, we can only raise 5 billion Ghana cedis, and that is not going to be enough. And so if he were the finance minister at this point, he would be advising the president to go to the IMF.
That's his opinion. And the last time we were at the IMF, what happened? I mean, we have the benefit of history and the benefit of knowing what has gone on with that. This is not the first time discussions about going to IMF is coming up. This is not the first time, if we would go, we would have ever gone to IMF. We've had these structural adjustments forever. I mean, it started right from the PNDC time till now. What has happened? What benefits have we gotten? I mean, we are behaving like, you know, you want change, you expect things to change, but you're continuously doing the same old things that are not giving you change. So this idea of asking everything that happens, you go through an economic meltdown and economic crisis, and then you run to the IMF. The past 20, 25 years, 30 years that we've been going to World Bank and IMF, what has happened? Any good benefits? Perhaps if those things are brought out, then some of us can look at it and see if we agree. Until then, I am totally against the idea of going to the IMF, because the last time we went, that was when there was a freeze in employment. That was when there was a freeze in government spending, and government couldn't do anything to help its people because you've put yourself under conditionalities that was not helping you. So unless we find ways and means of making sure that we change the 30-year round of going round and round and round and then ending up in the IMF, we're still going to stay here, and in the next 5-10 years, we'll be here again, hopefully we'll be alive, and then we'll be discussing the same issues. I just think we have to take away the politics of it and really look at it. The past 3 weeks, 1 month, we've been on this E-levy, we've been at the politics of it. So the real substance of it, for me, I believe is getting lost.
Which is what?
Which is, do we need taxes? Do we even need to even tax our people? That is the first question you should be asking. If we do, how many taxes do we have in the system now? What are they supposed to do? How many taxes have been abolished? How many taxes have been reintroduced? What is the E-levy supposed to do? Let's look at those issues straightforward and with it. Now, whether the president said this or he hasn't said this, how does that change anything? So the president, in looking forward in yesterday's statement that he made, I can see him as being, look, let's look at this, let's get going, because we need to get the country running.
But you've already introduced taxes.
And he's already...
Last year, you introduced the COVID, levy, sanitation levy. You reviewed some of the taxes already. So Ghanaians are asking that if you've already introduced those ones, why are you back again introducing E-levy?
It has been explained over and over again. I'm not the one to come and sit here and still continue explaining the reason why E-levy needs to come on. The reason why we need the E-levy for now is because we have thousands and thousands and millions of cedis of trade, of businesses going on online that has not been taxed or is not being taxed. Now, the point is government has to find new ways of raising revenue and new ways of widening the tax net so that every single Ghanaian does their quota. Now, when you have somebody who sells, and I have friends and I buy from people online, and it's not the 100 cedis buying. I mean, you can buy everything online now, from handbags to houses to what online. How many taxes do these people pay? So if I run a shop in my house and I sell clothing and I sell food, you know, some people actually do package groceries and deliver. How much tax do those people pay as a business? Because people are having businesses online. Now people refuse to go and rent shops. The shops are in their houses. All those people are people we should be targeted. Was it last week that I saw, was it Honorable Oslo telling us the number of online sales that has gone on in this year? And the volumes were huge. And according to her, all those ones are not being taxed.
So why don't you target them directly instead of targeting every Ghanaian?
Targeting them directly is all part of the E-levy. The Ghanaians who have been excluded from the E-levy are those, I believe, per the figures, for almost 40% who do not send more than 100 cedis in a day.
But if I am paying for something, you are taxing me double.
How am I taxing you double?
Because I've already paid for my income tax already. And now the little money that I have left as well, you are also going to tax on that.
You're not just paying income tax. You're paying COVID tax. You're paying, all the list that you mentioned. So the fact that you're paying income tax does not mean you shouldn't pay the other taxes.
But I'm already burdened.
You're not burdened.
I am not burdened.
What you are is you are helping your country to develop like every single other people. Now the people that we are going to for this IMF loans and everything, how do they also get their monies? Don't they tax their people? And then when they use it and there's some like they give it to you. So sometimes, as I said in the beginning, and I'll continue saying, we cannot use the same old way that we've been using for 30 years and expect different results.
But cut down on your expenditure. There are leakages. There's $540 million US dollars that was lost in 6 years through undervaluation of cocoa. That's just one of the many leakages that we have recorded. The Auditor General's report is another one of them. Some 12 I'm asking you a question. Some 12.8 million Ghana cedis lost as well. How are we ensuring that we seal these loopholes before we further burden the Ghanaian to pay more taxes, which is what the Ghanaian is asking?
30 years or 40 years, government, and therefore every single government that comes in has been experiencing leakages at all angles. The system of governance that we run in this country are such that everybody involved in the government system, along the line somewhere, there are leakages. It is the duty of the Auditor General and the Attorney General and all the other people to make sure that we get our monies back. Now, you do not tell me that when you have your job to do, and I do not know the quantum of leakages, but according to some of the documents I have read, there are some that are administrative leakages, there are some that are people who were paid monies they were not supposed to be paid, there are some normal government business that brings these things. And every year, the Parliamentary Committee on those who check, what's their name? Usually headed by the opposition, an opposition member. I might forget. Public Accounts Committee and the Attorney General go through every year. And this year is not the first year that we are realizing that certain government officials, certain public officials are doing things that they shouldn't do. Definitely, we have to get our monies back. How? And there are processes in there that you pay. At least I've done, even though I haven't done any serious government like official, I've been more of a private person. I've been in situations where I have seen people being surcharged for services that they were supposed to provide that they didn't provide. The ministries ask them to pay back. And sometimes it is taken from your salaries. So there are processes for us to get our monies back when they go. Now, you do not bring that in here when we are trying to raise taxes for everything that we do. Those government monies will come back.
They will for sure. You're sure of that?
If you don't, you go to prison. Some people do go to prison for picking government monies.
The PPA boss is not being prosecuted.
The PPA boss, has he been to court? I don't know about their matters yet.
Nothing has been done. He's only been asked to step aside. So he's not the CEO anymore. But nothing has been done. Even though Shraj asked that the government takes action against him, nothing has been done. That is the work
of the Attorney General to do. So I think we should be asking
the Attorney General also belongs to your party.
The Attorney General
it is your government. So that's why we're asking that. So if you're not making sure you take all these monies back, how do you ask us to pay some more money?
There are 1,001 people running for the past 10-15 years, including those in the opposition side, who also had spent money. I believe recently there was this thing about the
Saglemi-Hausen?
The Saglemi-Hausen, and then the recent one.
The Deputy Finance Minister.
Former Deputy Finance Minister. It's a process. You do not get up and go and stand in front of somebody's house and say, because Shraj or somebody says you are corrupt, let me go and imprison you. You don't do that. You go through a process. You send him to court. Then you there are a lot of people in court over issues of causing financial loss. It is a process. If we are going to wait for all these cases to be finished and our money is collected before we develop, then we have a long wait ahead. All I'm trying to say is that we are going to have issues. We are going to have, no government is perfect, no situation is perfect. We should have the processes in place that takes back our monies from people who have taken it. But whilst we're doing that, we also need to develop. We are asking for roads. We are asking for our schools to be built. We are asking for everything that government needs to do to be done. Are you waiting to collect all these monies from all these people in the last 20, 30, 40? Because some of the cases can run for about 10, 15 years. Are we going to wait till we collect all those monies before we develop? No. So as government is collecting all those monies that has to be collected legally and through the processes, government has to find ways and means of raising money to do the development work that we have been given. As the president said, no government comes from its party to form a government carrying money. No. What every government does is the nation's resources, you are mandated to use it well to help all of us to develop. And it is our duty to make sure that the government uses our monies well. And so the questions that Ghanaians are asking, they have every legitimate right to ask them. And the
president says
also,
it's unnecessary. The
president
disputes that we're getting is unnecessary.
he feels the opposition to it is unnecessary. That's why when I started, I said we have politicized it to such an extent that we are actually losing focus of the real matters on the ground.
Okay.
So government wants this amount of money. What does it want to use it for?
Jobs.
Those are the questions that we should be asking.
Creation of jobs is one of them.
Criticize them. Creation of jobs is one of them. I heard the road infrastructure is also one
another.
of them.
Cybersecurity. And a number. Okay.
So let us criticize those things that the government wants to do.
We've been told by the Deputy Finance Minister, John Kumar, that there's a research that has been conducted and it shows that 24%, there will be a 24% drop in mobile money transactions after the introduction of E-levy. Now, there's a tax expert, Dr. Abdullah Ali Nashia. He's saying that we're going to suffer some dire consequences if we introduce E-levy, because if we're saying we're going to, create jobs, in actual fact, we're going to rather cause people to lose their jobs, especially in the Momo sector, because all these people may not get people to transact anymore and they might lose their jobs. And so really, if we're introducing E-levy, let's not be so sure that it will create jobs. People will lose their jobs. And then there'll also be an issue of money laundering. So that's where he stands.
Explain the money
on that.
laundering. What does he mean by money laundering?
Okay. Well, he says that the passage of the E-levy bill could pose challenges for youth unemployment and give rise to money laundering offences. And he goes on to explain that an attempt to pass this bill resulted in a free-for-all fight. But there's a risk of increased youth unemployment. Much of the growth of the mobile money industry has employed vulnerable youth, especially women. The mobile money industry creates jobs for the mobile money agents, service providers, and users, including fintech companies, merchants. With the reduced volumes of transaction, the commission and hence revenue to the agents will reduce. And as a result, mobile money agents who generate an income from mobile money transactions have been directly impacted to the extent that even in Uganda and Congo, some have left the market. So the requirement to provide identification at SIM card registration started to drive down fraud and money laundering through the finance systems.
And E-levy would stop us from providing identification. Is that what he's trying to say? Because I really don't get it.
He says that if you introduce the tax, there's a risk that all these players could revert to using cash because of the cost. And that would increase fraud incidences and supervising cost.
Well, that is his opinion. I'm yet to get more information on why he's saying that. But, I mean, when you introduce any new as a tax levy policy, definitely there will be some drop in how it's going, because people have to now readjust themselves to getting used to it. And then the system would have to run for a while for everybody to see how it is going, for us to know that, yes, with all the opposition to it, is it truly true that if I do send 100 cedis, I will be taking, all these things will have to come in. So yes, we all anticipate a drop. But if you continue reading the Deputy Finance Minister's statement, he said he expects that drop would come back up, because the people will come back inside when the whole system settles.
It's not cast in stone.
Of course. What they are also saying is also not cast in stone. So you have to look at the pros and the cons. And definitely, I do not think that the finance ministry will come and just take a decision without looking at the pros and cons. You're looking at the jobs. I believe the jobs that we are really targeting, this is entrepreneurs, the young people. That's the You Start policy that the president, or the policy that they brought about. I have been a beneficiary of government, government policies. I told you I am more of an entrepreneur. I produce fruit juice. I run a juice school. Apart from the politics. Yes.
Okay.
And now I usually, at first I didn't want to talk about my business because of how we sometimes behave. But now I do have to talk about it because I have been a beneficiary of the COVID funds. I think I took about 50,000 to continue running my business.
Okay.
I was given
Was it for the school?
No, for the
fruit juice
business. Yes.
Okay.
As for the school, I'm still down because I still haven't come back after COVID. It's a decision. I want to wait a bit, 2-3 years before I go back.
Okay.
I mean, when you're dealing with people's children, you have to be quite careful. And I also don't have the time now. But with the fruit juice company, what it did, that 50,000 did for me was it kept me afloat during the COVID times because I really, really went down. I mean, when you're doing, those of us in the fruit juice production will tell you, when people are hard up, they are not interested in juice. So during the lockdowns, it was terrible for us. And I was given a 1-year moratorium to pay. So I've just started paying for that money.
Okay.
And I pay about 800 cedis every month. Now, I am a typical person of somebody, and for the benefit of our viewers, I wasn't giving that money because I'm a government person. My company applied normally through their portals. My name is not anywhere written on it. I just went through the process. And it was later when I got the money that I started paying that they even NBSSI realized that I was actually the one.
Okay.
So every normal Ghanaian can apply for it. And for me, this You Start is important because young people like me years ago who got out of school, and with COVID and everything, I can bet you a lot of them are going through stress, especially those who are entrepreneurs. So this job creation is meant for those young people. I believe now NEIP is the one going to deal with it. What it means is now, before COVID, I was employing 10, 15 people. During COVID, everybody had to go back. Now with this money, I'm able to bring back my team and employ more. So as we speak, I'm employing about 25 people.
Okay.
Now, if we have small companies like mine, a lot, producing food, and we are all complaining about the food losses that we are going through. I produce basically with pineapple. And as I said, you have a small company picking 5, another one picking 5, another one picking 5. That lessens the unemployment issue that we are talking about.
The CST was supposed to do that job.
CST.
The CST was supposed to do that job, the Communication Service Tax.
Well, whatever it is, all the monies that come in are grouped together and it is given to us. As I said,
nobody has given us an account of how many jobs have been created from the Communication Service Tax, and yet we're being told to pay E-levy.
I have just told you that I'm a typical beneficiary of the COVID tax.
But you're a government communicator, which is why I'm asking that we haven't heard any government communicator, any minister tell us that, so CST, when it was introduced, generated this amount of money and we use this amount of money to create jobs. These number of jobs. We don't have those answers.
And that's what I'm trying to explain to you. Yes, you can go to the agencies that need it. And yes, it is good you have said it. I'm sure we would carry it along so that we get you those details. But these things are having impact on the ground. And that's all I'm trying to say. And I even applied for it when I wasn't even in Accra. Okay. I was outside Accra. To ask what those monies will be used for, I'm a typical example of somebody who has benefited. And there are thousands. But
that's the NBSSI. That's totally different.
But some of these monies will go into it. NBSSI, what is the name I just mentioned? I feel Fusun Cancer's place.
Okay.
All of
you land on this for me then.
Related time advertising her business and her own interests.
Why would
okay, you land on this for me so I can bring lawyer in.
I did benefit from government intervention. Yeah. You don't think I should talk about it?
All right. Lawyer, what do you mean?
I think this is a very ridiculous proposition that Amma speaks to. They are expecting 6.9 billion from E-levy. People have stolen or losses in excess of 12.8 billion, at least from the Auditor General's report alone. In terms of COVID, we spent 200 million from the stabilization fund to extend free electricity and water. And the World Bank gave us 1 billion, which is where probably Ellen benefited from. I ran 3 small businesses. I know what I lost. And no government or COVID anything gave me any money.
Did you apply,
My
by the
mother's
way?
business did. She got nothing. And please, sometimes let's interrogate thoroughly these very dishonest views that we share on our platforms. Open your phone lines. Maybe there are many in Ellen's category, government spokespersons and communicators who probably benefited from these funds and disburse them as they please, explaining why they cannot on any day account for and be transparent about how those COVID resources were used. Do you know that electricity tariffs have gone up? Do you know that we are even paying more now for water? Bella, I purchase stuff online all the time and let nobody deceive us. When you order stuff from Farfetch, your tax you paid on the purchase from your credit card or whatever platform you're using to make the payment. I am sure if government is thinking as they promised they were going to do, as they lied they were going to do, as they misled all of us, including themselves, into believing, then we will not be having this conversation. Because what do you mean by buying things online and they don't pay taxes? Farfetch and all the online portals that all of us young women spend all the hours buying stuff from, we pay the taxes. I have a gentleman that sometimes even orders this stuff for my kids. And he'll tell me, oh, madam, you know, you have to pay for the tax first. So it's included and built into the cost of whatever item you're purchasing. If government is really thinking and wants to do what is right, they should show us the whole competence that they boasted and bragged about. I think that, look, the dishonesty is too much. The misleading impressions they are creating. If we have accounted for losses of 12.8 billion, $200 million, think about what that looks like on water and electricity because of COVID. Look at how much testing alone has cost. Look at how much Frontiers has benefited from the government of Ghana and people who are sick in the course of a pandemic. I think the challenge we have is a very, very, very dishonest and corrupt administration that has totally stripped the meat off the flesh and left the bones and the carcasses, trying to deceive and hoodwink all of us into believing that the E-levy is now a panacea, a sine qua non, a solution even to a headache, if you have one, that is. I think it is totally immoral, it is unacceptable, and it's wrong. Look, we have succeeded in hauling the Honorable Atta Forson before court. What has happened to Mr. J of PPA? What has happened to the youth employment persons who squandered over 2 billion Ghana cedis of the state's resources, taxpayers' money? I think that charity, they say, begins at home. For as long as we still spend $14,000, inconceivable and incredible amounts of money on luxury, for His Excellency the President to have luxurious flights and enjoy his life because he's our president. Have you looked around the sub-region lately? Have you seen the numbers of coup d'etats that are taking place? Have you seen the insurgents creeping into our system? The sheer impunity. It is one becoming a huge security threat. And Ghana is not immune to some of these threats. I have no doubt in my mind that the stealing is too much. The corruption is too much. And look at the Corruption Perception Index. It is not I, as an individual, who is saying it. Perception has actually deepened in terms of what corruption looks like in Ghana. All of the fake promises have totally failed to deliver. What happened to the Office of the Special Prosecutor? What happened to Ejapa and all of those things that the Honorable Martin Amidu spoke of? Eventually, he resigned. A new Special Prosecutor has been appointed. What has he done so far?
He complained of lack of resources as well.
There has never been any intention by this government to do right by the people of Ghana. It is to feed fat on COVID funds for their aficionados.
That's quite unfair if you say there's been no intention on the part of governments.
On borrowing to
Otherwise,
spend.
why would they also appoint another special prosecutor to
That
look
is
into?
it is more of that same deception. And I told you, when people speak, watch their body language. They know when they are being dishonest. And for the finance minister today to stand there and tell us he's likening the cathedral eventually to Jerusalem. Jerusalem has years under its belt of faith and faithfulness. And when you go there, nobody steals your money. There's no corruption there that you go to speak of. You actually go there for what? Spiritual cleansing. And then you return wherever you're coming from. I think that the impunity is too much. There's a certain misdirection, a certain impression that they can hoodwink everybody into believing what they are doing. Bella, we were right here when ministers refused even to account for amounts expended on the president's travels. The Office of Government Machinery has increased its budget by 450 million. What do they do there? Look at the convoy of vehicles that follow the president and other state actors around. Did you hear the story about what happened at the town hall meeting when all the vehicles were sat there and the engines running for 4 hours? What was the finance minister talking about? Let's end this wasteful business. Let's stop this corrupt government from further cheating and duping us. Let's demand full accountability and ask them to deliver on their promises. What happened to all the Ghanaians who were going to get bank accounts? What happened to the $1 million that was going to go to every constituency? And look, if you have no policy credibility, then your only option is to go to the IMF. In any case, you've told us that NAPO has ended, that if you don't get the E-levy, you can't pay. Ghana is a state party to the IMF. Maybe sometimes we overburden the subjects. Every student of international law knows what it means to be a state party. You contribute to the kitty of the IMF. You pay fees to be a member of the IMF. When you have policy credibility issues and a deficit as huge as ours, where you have to cough up $35+ billion or cedis to pay for debt servicing alone, you know that you have a challenge. Look, our debt to GDP is currently 80% and counting. Kid us not. I think the deception has to end. And I think this is not a matter that is about NDC or MPP. You know, take it or leave it. There is one thing I'd give credit to the NDC for. One, for boldly swallowing whatever was happening. For admitting the challenges we had and calling for a conversation, even at Senchi. How did our opponents at the time react? And when the NDC went to IMF, eventually we stabilized the city. Look at the rate of inflation. And eventually what happened was that Ghana's economy was supposed to grow by what? Over 8% in 2017. Go and check the figures of how much they found in the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, in the Stabilization Fund, in the Legacy Fund, in the ESLA Fund, in the GET Fund. All these taxpayers' monies have been mortgaged to various financial institutions for 13 billion in bonds in the space of 5 years. How have we expended it? And please, let's ignore the finance minister's rhetoric. Accounting to who?
How do we ignore him? He is the man in charge of our economy.
He has failed woefully and should have resigned by now.
He should have resigned.
Totally. Look, anywhere in this world, this finance minister will be history. Nobody will be talking about him. He wouldn't even have the teeth to travel around and tell us this sort of crap, excuse my French. I mean, begging us to do what? Please account for all the monies you have received, for all the bonds, the road shows. We know who the biggest beneficiaries are.
Who are those?
Oh, the finance minister's company was mostly the one that was consulting. Most of the transactions went to them. Both of the ministers are the finance minister.
And you can say that for a fact?
Absolutely, without any fear of contradiction. And in the same way that she has confided in us about the monies that she received from COVID funds. Government, friends, and family are the only ones who are benefiting.
But she says that she only applied even without government knowing that she was the owner of the business.
Eventually they found out.
But that was after they had expended that money.
Don't worry, look, we live in Ghana. We all live in this country.
I believe I'm not.
And I want to believe what she's saying.
Hold on, please.
And you just found out who a Ghanaian is. You didn't know that 4 years ago that there were Ghanaians and other Ghanaians, and that there's a ruling elite, and that there's a certain group of political class that can come out and voice any decisions on us. Please, sorry, Amma. On this, I totally disagree. Let's end the corruption. Let's end the stealing. Let's end the profligate spending. Let's end the wastage. Let's be accountable to the good people of Ghana for once. But the best part is, let's be honest, that Mahama, Mills, and the Honorable Setekwe, who is the finance minister's very good friend and advisor, left behind a blueprint on a homegrown solution to avoid going back to the IMF or to the World Bank. If they had stopped the stealing, they had stopped the wanton dissipation of government resources. Hiding on the pandemic is no excuse. As I've said, check the deficits across African countries, just like us, that experience similar things. Why are you now telling us, look, we've been paying taxes all our lives, for everything and on everything. It didn't just start now. New taxes have been introduced at some point. And we know how today's president telling us about, he told us that we're sitting on the money. And yet we don't see it. He told us that Ghana would become the cleanest city in Africa. We have a sanitation tax. He told us that all of the corruption cases will be investigated and dealt with. Why is he not starting from his own backyard, where his family and friends have amassed huge sums of money? Have you heard what is happening at the Ghana Airport Company with a personal private business person close to the presidency and other powerful people? Now they're even turf wars between those feeding fat on our taxes. Bella, I am a citizen of Ghana first and foremost. I also come from a very deprived constituency, and I understand what it means to suffer hardship. I tried to look for gas in one of our constituencies. It was almost impossible. I know what contributions the Ghana Gas Company is currently making. Go to the Western region. Look at the number of jobs, the people that are engaged there. It actually provides for 50% of our gas and electricity needs.
Okay.
And so when leaders come into power, they should first and foremost express the vision they have for us. They should first and foremost express the ambitions they have for us. But when you come into office, you condemn your predecessor entirely and completely hoodwinked and deceive Ghanaians into believing that you are going to do a better job. And I remember the refrain at the time, we'll be better managers, protecting the public purse. I am a well self-made man and not coming to steal from Ghana. Why didn't he come into office with his own private jet? Why didn't he come into office with his own vehicles? Why didn't he come into office?
But there are vehicles that are allocated to the president.
Yeah, but how many of them? And how often are they changed? And when you know that your country is literally broke and bankrupt, what do?
Okay.
You stop buying new vehicles. You stop using too many vehicles. I love one thing about President Mahama, and I remember how he loved to use the small saloon cars. He still does, and I think that is a mark of modesty. And we must all learn from that.
All right.
And stop wasting government resources and telling us all these strange tales that we're tired of hearing. And you can tell they're all singing from almost like a syndicated conversation. I like Amma for one thing. Every now and then, she's very honest. But I disagree with her entirely. And I think that she's not being sensitive to the feelings of Ghanaians. When she speaks in this way, she does government no good. Like I said, government ministers and appointees and actors should stop doing this sort of public relations. If they don't have a clue, find someone who can teach you. But please, don't act as if we don't know what is going on. We buy stuff online all the time. Go to some of the states in the US. You walk in fact, each state has a tax higher than the other. People shop in some states because the taxes there are lower. You pay as you leave. And same for most online portals. You don't finish and come and sleep in your house. After you've paid all the taxes you can think of, then you say, oh, because you have also businesses online. Please think.
Amma,
and do the work that you are engaged to do.
Council says that the finance minister should have been history by now. If this were another country, he wouldn't still be in office.
I am really surprised that the NDC and their communicators and Auntie Joyce and everybody in the NDC is behaving as if they've never been in power before. And they are now preaching about sanitization of government. Seriously, the NDC preaching about government sanitation. I believe there are some things that you have to check yourself first before you talk about it. Are we now saying that the presidency, not just the president is voted for at a time? In 3 years or 2 years, Mr. Akufo-Addo will be done with his job and he'll be gone. Another person will come in as president. So government or presidencies run in a certain way. If you're asking government to cut down on its expenses, that you can do, but you do not attack the person sitting in there as president, because he is president. We voted for him to be president. And every other person who comes on as president will enjoy the benefits that he's enjoying.
Does that include paying $14,000 per hour on a private jet?
Ex-President Mahama cannot tell me that he did not enjoy the benefits of power when he was president or vice president. Ex-President Mahama and Auntie Joyce cannot tell me that they did not use private jets when they were in government.
Was it going for $14,000 an hour?
I have no idea how much the private jets is going for because I don't deal in that. And this $14,000 an hour that they've been screaming about, how sure are we that it is the truth? Because we haven't gotten any information yet.
We were hoping that the ministry would update us. They said it's a national security issue.
Thank you. So until it is, they should bring us how much Mr. Mahama was using for his private jets when he was traveling. And then perhaps we can force the national security minister to bring it. Since he was a president and his information wasn't brought out, how do you expect the sitting president's information to be brought out when it is classified? Sometimes these things, as I said, they are behaving as if Mr. Mahama is a new being created by God. He's the same old Mr. Mahama that we knew.
But he wasn't better, which is why Ghanaians said we prefer to change. And we gave President Akufo-Addo the mandate.
Mr. Mahama that we all knew, the same old NDC that we all knew. So if, in their estimation, things are not going well, sometimes you look at, as I said, look at your situation, where you've come from and your history, before you criticize another person. But you do not go around and say that a certain government doing everything it can to make sure that government progresses, government goes on. In the current situation we are in the world pandemic, and then you try to compare a pandemic situation to a non-pandemic situation where we didn't have any pandemic situation, but you still had to go to IMF. And you want us to compare the two? Obviously, it can't be compared. So let us deal with the situations as we find ourselves now. There's a pandemic, world economic systems are melting, everybody is in trouble. Every single country is going through a form of a crisis. At the time you were in power, there was no pandemic, but we still went to IMF. We are now in a pandemic with all this going on, and we are saying we will not go to IMF. We believe that doing the same old things, the same way for 30, 40 years, even with the pandemic, will not help us. That is why we are trying everything possible to generate funds inward. So if you do not agree with us, that is excellent, but you do not cast insinuations and insult the way somebody is going around doing his business that Ghanaians have given him to do. You did yours in the way you did it, and Ghanaians were not happy about it. Obviously, from 2020, Ghanaians are happy with Mr. Akufo-Addo.
Is that really the case? You lost
obviously
half the number of votes
Ghanaians
that you got
the
first term when the president came into power. Is that not an indication that Ghanaians are not happy with your current party, your current government as well?
If they were unhappy, they would have voted him out. Since he was voted in and he went to an election and he won legitimately, he is the president of Ghana. Ghanaians, or majority of Ghanaians... You lost
half the number of votes that you were able to win with.
So...
Former President Mahama also got 6 million votes as well. Just almost equal to what President Akufo-Addo got. Does that not give you a signal that people are not happy with your governance?
No, doesn't make
him president. It doesn't make him president, yes. But then, does that not insinuate something? Are you not concerned about that?
Since Ghanaians voted for Mr. Akufo-Addo to continue, it means Ghanaians want him to continue. For me, I believe Ghanaians actually did say they were happy with what happened in Parliament. That is where Ghanaians showed that they were unhappy.
But and not at the polls.
And therefore, with the parliamentary issues, there's issues, the seats and all that. And therefore, we are being forced to work together, whether we like it or not.
Your MPs lost a number of seats. You had 169 before. It moved down to 137. That is not an indication that Ghanaians are not happy with your governance?
Wanted us to work together. As politicians, the NDC and the MPP had no choice but to work together.
That's why you had the 137, 137?
But the Ghanaians are definitely happy with keeping Mr. Akufo-Addo as president.
No, you said
and therefore, in the next 3 years, Mr. Akufo-Addo is going to be president. And he is going with his team, is going to dictate how Ghana is going to move for the next 3 years until we go to the next elections.
I want to get something clear,
So it is better for us to agree and go through what he's saying, put it through the critique that we want to put it through. Yes, ask him questions. I'm not saying nobody should ask government questions. Ask him questions. Criticize us. Parliament should do what they have to do. But you do not behave as if he has to behave like how you did 4 years ago. Every government and how they work.
So you're saying that
party and how they work.
The reason why we have 137 on the side of MPP and 137 on the side of NDC is because Ghanaians want you to work together?
That is how I am looking at it. You're asking for my opinion. I said, per what I have seen and per what is happening in Parliament, Ghanaians definitely, because if Ghanaians wanted the MPP to be the minority in Parliament, they would have voted that way.
And if they wanted the majority,
if they wanted the NDC to be the majority in Parliament, they would have voted that way. Because
that is also contested, by the way.
Because they slit it in the middle. For me, it tells me that guys sit down and talk and work. Okay. For me.
But we've seen more fights.
Well, as for the fights, from what is going, we are going to see more fights. That's what I can see. You do not tell me that President Akufo-Addo should run his government like how President Mahama ran his.
Amma, thank you. Let Cookie read some messages quickly, please. Council, a minute, please let Cookie read her message.
So because of that, I'll just read maybe just 3 or 4. Bella, it seems the government is not ready to listen. How can the members of UTA still be on strike? It's true when the late President Atamil said the MPP government doesn't respect teachers. Asma Junior Trifoheman sent in that one. Bella, morning to you and your panelists. I listened to the finance minister yesterday and I was surprised with the statement at the town hall meeting. Why all these deception to the people just for E-levy to be accepted? This E-levy, I am sure, will make Ghana look like Singapore. The desperation is too much. Ayuran from Adenta News site sent in that one. Bella, it's high time we began to tell this Akufo-Addo and his people around him the truth. They cannot put us into this pain and still come back to insult us indirectly. If they do not know, respect is reciprocal. Now, all their words are insults to the good people of Ghana. Kofi Yesu inside in Kawi sent in that one. I read the last one that says, this current government is a scam. They only think of enriching themselves and not the nation. The finance minister's speech yesterday was full of impunity and it was very insensitive on his part. They must take our Ghana seriously. Why should he make that ridiculous statement? He needs to apologize. Bella, these are some of the things happening in Guinea and Burkina Faso that has led to the coup. We do not pray for that in Ghana, but if care is not taken, we will have ourselves to blame. Boutique Boy from Garu sent in that one, and Bella, I think I'll just leave it here.
All right,
because of time.
Thank you so much. And shortly we'll have Samir who could join us in the studios for an exclusive with Johnny. But final words from my guest.
A very quick one, Bella. The same way they stood on the platforms and screamed loudly like Amma is doing this morning, it's pretty much the same way that we should be allowed to criticize as often and as many times as possible. We must first indicate that we've seen the CDD report. We've seen the Corruption Perception Index. Right?
Yes.
We know how corrupt and wasteful this administration has been, irrespective. We also believe strongly that they are definitely terrible managers of the economy. Above all, let me state without any fear of equivocation that for President Mahama at any given time, it was not about comfort or enjoyment. It was always to serve the good people of Ghana. And his life out of office is testament to that modesty that he characterizes himself by.
Okay.
Secondly, to tell us on any day that it is the president's preserve. We are in a democracy, not a dictatorship. We actually elect and vote.
Okay.
And it is a first past the post arrangement. So if you lost in one swoop half of your numbers in parliament, and you even won the election, that is if he won legitimately, it tells you something about your administration.
All right.
And ask yourself,
Lawyer,
what has happened to all the lofty things about Ghanaians gave me an overwhelming mandate? Where is that overwhelming mandate?
That's
okay.
It disappeared in one evening.
Lawyer, we have to go. Coco, please pardon
totally
me so we can even it out.
with
If she
all
can
these
give her
things.
final words as well.
My very short final words. It is obvious that the NDC are just trying to rebrand Mr. Mahama, and therefore everything the government does, they'll have to bring. But then Mr. Mahama is the same old Mr. Mahama, as I said.
Okay.
God hasn't created any new Mr. Mahama.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies, for joining us this morning. I've had lawyer Joyce Bawa Mokhtari. She is a special aide to former President Mahama, and Amma Derko is a member of the NPP communications team.
I'm running for National Women's Organization.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. All the best then.
So now you
and
know why
we
she's
have
receiving COVID
well, we have the national organizer
that's
of the
too
ruling
small.
MPP joining us shortly, Mr. Sami Ewuku. Make sure you don't go anywhere for that exclusive, and later we'll have some conversation on sports and entertainment. This is TV3 New Day. Keep watching.